Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the console relegations, North American style. My name's Tom. That guy is Tolly, and we have an interesting one. It's Elevate versus Relevated. These names are going to be interesting, but the games should be even more so. Elevate looked pretty strong during the regular season, and here, coming out against Relevated, should be interesting. P's and B's, pretty please.
Elevate is one of those teams that made a huge splash inside the LAN last time. Michael Checo specifically out of this team in the Hunter role has played so many unconventional picks between Ao Kwong, the Morgan as well in the jungle for DoctorL whenever he was running that double Neve strategy. I like what strategies that Elevate has come up with themselves. We'll see if they start to switch things up now that they're in the relegations.
I mean, switching things up is what they do. Being abnormal is the norm for Elevate, but at the end of the day, Cernunnos, normal or not, still very strong, so the Hunter will be first pick overall for Elevate. Relevated on the right-hand side have the option. Bellona will be one choice here, likely to be solo, but she can flex a little bit if you've got an open mind, and she'll be paired up with Fafnir, who is almost undoubtedly support.
Fafnir, so far, hasn't really been seeing too much success in the console side of things. We've seen a lot of Fafnir earlier today, actually, but a lot of strategies were more about the resilient, tanky composition instead of more of this aggressive, coerce, go for the objectives. I would like to see an Isis paired up with this Fafnir and really try to control these objectives early on.
Okay, with the idea of objective secure, makes sense. Khepri and Osiris next to the Cernunnos, very tanky situation there. Khepri going to provide some shields, and Osiris just in general, a guy that likes to do what he can. Medusa will be the selection for the Hunter role over on Relevated side. And as we head into ban phase number 2, Serket right away taken off the board by Relevated.
And I like what Relevated did because if you remember, Delnyy played Bellona non-stop at the LAN. So that's doing your homework right there, taking that option away from him, but going for a more aggressive style still on the Osiris.
Well, just like you said, the Morgan also doing homework. Relevated got to see what Elevate were doing earlier in the a couple of weeks prior, and they're going to take away the Morgan, one of those very important plays. The double Neath ult coming out, very important to what Elevate wanted to do when Michael Checo was on the Ao Kwong in that long lane. A little bit more standard, however. Thor will be your jungler of choice for Relevated. And as Elevate continue to round out their draft, Cernunnos and Khepri likely to be to the duo lane. Osiris over there on the short side. Cabrakan will be your jungler. And the mid lane will be big old Thoth guy. So Elevate, they've got a lot of damage and a fair amount of control at their disposal.
And what Relevated have is a good global presence with this Thor in the jungle, which allows them to be very flexible with this last pick for their mid-mage, unless that's going to be the Medusa for mid, which is a possibility, but then you're kind of lacking in the magical department, so you would have to go either the Soul, Kronos, or Freya to make up for that. However, with the Thor in the jungle, you pretty much have the world at your disposal with what you really want to go in the mid lane.
Hades is the selection. I think this is going to be the first of, well, not the first, as we saw some Hades earlier, but I think this tournament, this day of relegation matches, will be the first of many where Hades is front and center. Elevate versus Relevated, our second North American match of the day. We'll get into the business right here, and it will be Truancii on that mid lane Hades, staying close to the ground.
And I like the start of the build, going for the stopwatch, going for a lot of that cooldown reduction, and then probably what's going to be a Bancroft's talent later down the road. Going for the tiny trinket to start things off gives you a little bit of magical lifesteal to be able to stay in the lane a little bit longer, but more importantly, look at what Rippin Holes elected to do for his relic option. That is great for objective secure.
Frenzy, yeah, I mean, you were talking about relic secure or objective secure way in the beginning. The Frenzy here right away going to really provide, and they're going to use it on the first wave right away, just providing a ton of damage and, more importantly, healing. As Truancii goes down to about 75% and then heals back up. We saw that before in the solo lane, and it didn't work out because the jungler kind of played differently. That time around, the Rippin Holds understands what Truancii is going for. They're able to heal up off of the Devour Souls, and a strong job.
And the great thing about this relic is because not only does it give you increased damage to your allies by 10% and 15% attack speed, with the, not the necessarily the biggest nerf of all to Hog, this item, Belt of Frenzy, has been so good because it does 10% additional damage towards objectives. So pair up this relic with the Fafnir Draconic form that's going to be using that Coerce in an AoE impact. The objective control for Relevated should be dominant as long as they have both the Draconic form and that Belt of Frenzy up at every single disposal.
So a couple of these players should be familiar to you. Jumpa has definitely been in and around the console scene at a professional and a semi-professional level. Truancii as well was actually a part of a professional team until he opted not to go to LAN, and now he finds himself on Relevated. Rippin also, not only is he a known member of the console scene, but he's also local to hi-rez. He lives about 10 minutes away, so should he make it to LAN, well, it's gonna be nice and cheap. Fatatoskr and Nexamiss, on the other hand, new additions. And I'm very eager to see how these outside players work together to become inside the team.
And more old names is Michael Checo and everyone else from Elevate. Playing a more standard god now, not going to find your fancy Ao Kuang or your Hell. Before, there's been a lot of rumors of how he's been practicing the Hell recently, but this time around, playing a more traditional standard hunter.
And that's what's really important to me about this Elevate team, but the hunter, specifically Michael Checo, is that, yes, he does have the Ao Kuang that he can pull out, he does have the Habwa like Paul, and he does have the Hell that people have been talking, but he can also just play the role. He learns the rules, he knows how to play the role traditionally before he breaks those rules and goes out of bounds or thinks outside the box, and I think that's very important. Know the rules before you break the rules, otherwise you just wind up breaking the rules for no reason. Now you're in a situation where you understand the hunter role, the long lane, and why you would want to break the rules, and that's why it's interesting when Michael Checo brings out the exciting picks.
And then whenever you do break the rules, you have to know the consequences, and Michael Checo trusts his teammates to be able to bail him out of danger if he's going to go too far out of bounds whenever he goes for these magical style of gods in that dual lane left alone. But this game, so far, so good for him. He's level 6 compared to Fatatoskr, sitting at level 4.
Forcing out the ultimate Nexamiss, but here's help from the jungle. Double tap is good. Delny's in trouble. The ultimate over the wall. Nice use of that. Delnyy escapes, and both teams narrowly escape, becoming first blood. Well done. I loved that jump ultimate, to be honest with you.
It was a greatly timed ultimate hitting both members. Unfortunately for Relevated, it was a nice offensive play from Elevate that forced the Eagles rally from Nexamiss earlier on. If that cooldown was still available, that certainly would have been a dead Osiris on Delnyy.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, sure, if you want to play the if game, sure. If Jumpa actually hit the double tap, I think that's a dead Osiris either way, but mechanics, well, these players a little bit cold. Relevated and Elevate, their first game of the day. We saw Most Wanted and Starboys play earlier. Starboys taking that game in pretty fun fashion. The Titan having 2 HP at the end, and we just saw a Serket jump on it to kill it.
It's always so many epic games so far. The Serket jump to kill the Titan, the Apollo earlier on today with the last possible in hand. Some really exciting stuff coming out of the console relegations today, at least.
Yeah, over there in European, on the European side of things, we saw a split. One SCL team stayed, and then one of the challenger teams did go ahead and make it up and topple the opposition. Here in North America, we're still very early on. Elevate looked really strong here at LAN a couple of weeks ago. We'll see if that will continue online or not.
A lot of respect given to this team because of all the wacky things that they've been pulling out in scrims, and they have been executing it in a LAN environment. But right now in the past, so they did it in the semifinals in their match, I think, against Obey Alliance, was it? But then in the finals against Astral Authority, they kind of peeled it back a little bit. They didn't really want to go a little too ham. They wanted to be more safe and standard. And so far in the first game of the relegations, they're also being relatively quiet, I would say, in terms of their expectations of wacky picks.
Well, like I said, this is a team that understands. This is kind of all that thought as the Oracle's being fought over, at least theoretically. This is a team that I think that we mentioned before how you really have to think deeply in this season of Smite. And if you look at some of the PC teams, some of the criticism of the North American squads are that either they don't think or they think too hard. I think Elevate find themselves right in that Goldilocks zone where, they can pull the double Neath combo thanks to a Morgan with the Ao Kuang in the short lane, and you support that with or they can just play regular old-fashioned Smite. And I think, like I said about Checo, macro size with the whole team, you got to be able to do both. When do you pull out jank? Well, when it needs to happen. But right here, let's just play our game, baby.
And it's working out. He has a 2-level advantage with this red buff. Hasn't backed yet for that second item. More than likely will be that Ichabod. A lot of hunters that rush into Warrior Tabby that aren't planning to go for Transcendence will actually just negate lifesteal in general to get that huge attack speed boost and strip away that physical power that the enemy hunter has with their Transcendence.
And don't forget, Cernunnos does have built-in lifesteal on the spring stance of his first ability, so he is able to supplement that attack speed without even or the lifesteal without even building it. So he can go right into that attack speed and help him out. Here I like how he's starving out the opposition. Already has a 2-level lead, just looking to stretch it.
That's why whenever you do back as a hunter or a solo laner, you want to just hold on to the wave as long as possible. If the wave comes and you're still there, your opponent back doesn't use the teleport to get back to lane, it's very easy to strip away that gold and experience. Not to mention, if you stay a little bit even further out of vision, but you're still soaking up that experience, now the opponents have called that you're missing, and they have to back off in the mid lane just in preparation of what could be a possible rotation.
And then there's also there's a third, threefold. The third bonus for kind of stripping and freezing the wave, as it's called, is the fact that you're not pushing past that imaginary halfway mark and putting yourself into danger. Gold Fury going to be started and leashed. The frenzy popped by Rippin holes, but Elevate very intelligently. Look how they spread out. Not only do they get out of the situation totally, but they spread in 3 different directions. So if Jumpa does want to commit, he's committing onto a single player, not a whole group of them.
Relevated have the great defensive play to the offensive mindset out of Elevate. We were talking about this Relic with Fafnir combination, how good it'll be. However, there wasn't a commitment towards that Gold Fury out of Relevated. Instead, dropping it to try to force an engagement that didn't really work out for them because of the great preparation from Elevate.
Yeah, Hades. So Hades has burst. Don't misquote me here. Hades definitely has burst. When somebody's blighted and you hit them with the Devour Souls, they're going to get hit hard. Now, imagine if you follow up the dash into the Devour Souls, they're chunked for half of their HP. I'm not saying that he doesn't have burst, but in juxtaposition to Boronic's choice of the Thoth when it comes to objective secure, Hades cannot dance with that mid lane objective secure. So when it comes down to it, Relevated has to be careful when they decide to full commit to things like the Gold Fury, because Boronic can drop the window and just and find himself with a giant ult.
And that's the difference between Hades and Thoth for Bellona and Truancii, is the fact that Truancii has to come right at your face to be able to get off his burst damage, whereas Boronic can just drop that wall, charge up his ultimate from a distance, fire it out. And that's also the difference between Hades and other mid-mages. You look at Agni, you look at Scylla, a lot of their damage is unexpected and through the wall potentially in some of those instances, and it's very safe, whereas Hades has to commit with his character by using that dash, or maybe even going for a blink in the second relic slot.
Right. It's much like we see Habwa as sort of Habwa and Chang'e are sort of these melee-oriented mages. Hades absolutely just the same, where all 3 of his damage-dealing abilities are PBAOEs, point-blank AOEs. They're AOE damage, but he is the center of them, whether it's the leap, the Devour Souls, the third ability, or even the Pillar of Agony. He's the central point, so he's got to be right there in the thick of things, which is why it's really important that he is able to heal himself up with that Devour Souls, and that's where he surprises players. It's like, haha, I've got him low, and then he heals back up to full, and they're stuck in a Pillar of Agony, and they just kind of fall over.
And people forget just how much utility that he brings to the table. He's a great mixture of damage with utility. He can silence you for 2 seconds at max rank.
2 second silence is intense.
And then especially if you have a blight on you, that's going to be a fear, not a silence any longer. So if you're caught in a really awkward position, you're going to be running in the direction that you're facing. Not to mention also his ultimate is great for burning the purification beads or capitalizing on targets that don't have that relic available.
Yeah, that's going to be one of the big pushes for Relevated here with Truancii on this Hades, is you're looking for Jumpa and Fatatoskr to burn beads. Fatatoskr needs to find really big petrifies, and Jumpa needs to initiate landing on multiple players, making them use the beads so that Truancii comes in secondary to really drop that ultimate. Truancii, Hades sounds like a fantastic initiator, but you're just able to pop beads and walk away. That's why Relevated have to use their mid lane Hades as a secondary initiation after the CC immunities for Elevate are down, and that's where he's going to be the most successful.
No kills quite yet, but Elevate are topping the charts, both gold and experience, able to really just out-farm Relevated without any Gold Furies being down. This has been an impressive sight to see out of them. Nice little dodge by Jumpa, barely able to hammer through mid lane, avoiding that stun from DoctorL.
Actually, yeah, I mean, that's a decent amount of a lead. And if we take a sneak peek at net worth, I would really like to see the situation specifically between the two hunters. And you're looking at about 400, so it's less than I had anticipated. I thought the entire Elevate lead was going to be on Michael Checo above Fatatoskr here, about a level separating the two hunters, but a little bit closer than I had anticipated. And both Oracles go the way of Relevated. Nice play.
Yeah, nice play. They're also going to have to try to retreat. A little bit of poke in return as oBoronic uses that dash offensively. No capitalization from Relevated to punish that dash, but safe and sound after getting that vision around the Gold Fury for this 1 minute. They're going to be content with farming one more additional wave after this one and look for more opportunities to ward around this Gold Fury, because what looks to be more control for Elevate, at least in the warding department.
Yeah, I'd like to see Relevated. You're going to see this Hades come online rather soon. Once this Bancroft talent is done, I've been really talking about the heal that comes off of Devour Souls. The Bancroft talent is just going to amplify that even more so. Once he has those two items, we usually see players need 3 items, most notably Freya and some of the assassins. Hades needs 2. With his Bancroft talent done, you've got a Thor and a Medusa with 40 stacks on the Transcendence. This is Relevated's time to shine. It's been 12.5 with no kills so far, and now it's time for Relevate to just turn it on.
Well, on the flip side, though, you look on the members of Elevate, they have some important power spike items as well. We see Gauntlet of Thebes just now finishing for Kenshin. Fatalis very close for Checo. It might be finished here. And then in the solo lane, Delnyy with DoctorL doing a lot of damage, but Delnyy almost finishing off what looks to be a mystical male.
Yeah, that should be the choice. This has been Deathwalker, one of the European PC players. He pretty much brought out this Boots and a Mark of the Vanguard into Mystical Mail build. It's been very successful. He built it primarily on Bellona, but you can build it on basically whomever. The idea is that Mystical Mail, while expensive, is a strong item, and the reason we haven't seen it built is because of how expensive it is. But that Mark of the Vanguard allows you to do it.
Absolutely, in the solo lane, dating back to Season 0, has been one of the most common items, even so common that you used to rush it even before finishing off Boots in the Warrior versus Warrior matchup. Jumpa going into the sky, looking to dive the back.
And he gets it on the Khepri, hits up Michael Checo as well. No beads used just yet, but front side, it's all oBoronic. Fat's going to be first blood. Elevate, getting on the board thanks to the mid-mage. Look at DoctorL coming around the backside, looking for the gank on a Fatatoskr. Everybody focused on the mid-game near Gold Fury. There's DoctorL's flank proving fruitful, taking down Rippin holes, and it'll be 2 for the Console League veterans. Elevate looking for the Gold Fury now. They've opened the window.
The one disadvantage with Hades is you're a stationary target. So easy to hit that final judgment for oBoronic. DoctorL off the mark with his ultimate, trying to run away, but he did his job zoning the rest of the enemies to allow his team to get the first Gold Fury at the 14-minute mark.
Big plays right there. Elevate. I said Relevated needed to make the moves, and I broke down all of the tools they had that would be really coming into themselves around this point in time. But Elevate, a very similar situation, now sitting up 4,000 gold because of their push. Well, oBoronic, a little bit later of a mage than Hades, I would say personally, but Cernunnos. This is one of the newer characters, and it's not quite as simple as Medusa mid-game, Xbalanque late-game. He is multifaceted, and I think if you're looking at the basic attack world, Toli, he's late-game. You want to build that first ability up and get a lot. But realistically, when it comes down to his abilities and such, I really view Cernunnos as a mid-game hunter, very similar to the likes of Medusa.
Absolutely. We're looking at the way Michael Checo is building in. He's maxing out that Shifter of Seasons. He gives him so much utility once this ability is maxed out. You choose your pick of the litter between 15% physical lifesteal on the Spring Growth. You also have 25 reduced physical protections when you're in the autumn mode. And then once you're going into the summer heat, you're getting additional power. So not only are your in-hands getting increased, but your abilities. And then not to forget the important slow coming out of the winter chill at 15%. So if you have Fatalis, you can chase anybody down with that winter mode.
Remember Heavy Hammer and Fatalis?
Yes. That's still a thing probably in Duel.
You guys, I wish we had a caster cam. Totally the professional solo.
disgusted.
Your pro career really intersected with Heavy Hammer. And as soon as I mentioned it, you just...
I'm disgusted. I still go Heavy Hammer. I still go Frostbound Hammer in solo lane just because I'm like, it's just so obnoxious. You just stick onto one target and they can't do anything about it. If they're left alone, you're guaranteed dead.
Yeah, it's pretty rough. And that's what Michael Checo is going to be looking to do with that shifter of seasons. And that's why I said he has two real jumps. Once he maxes that second ability, the Brambles, right? He's dealing some damage with it, and that's when he can really team fight and cause some trouble. But then when he maxes that shifter of seasons secondarily, now he's really swinging. So is he a mid-game hunter? Yeah. Is he a late-game hunter? Also, yeah. He can kind of do both, which is pretty problematic, but his team fight is really where he becomes scary.
And what makes him a great late game hunter is the fact that he doesn't have to go for lifesteal because of that in his kit. And that gives him that huge edge over a lot of other hunters. There's some self-sustain in other hunters, but in terms of mobility, Fatatoskr should have the edge with that passive, having no movement penalty reduced sideways and only 50% once he moves backwards.
I mean, that's also, talking about the itemization or the kit giving him room to itemize however he wants. Normally, we would see the equivalent to Executioner, maybe. He can go Fatalis because of that protection shred on the fall. Jump forward for the Portal Demon. He's going to get leash. Jumpers in the sky. Looking for a target. Lands on the backside. He's going to force out the beads. And oBoronic going to be live.
Jumper very low. Having to retreat. The ultimate from Truancii. Final Judgment off the mark, but still taking a lot of damage, dashing away. The Cabrakan ultimate buying a little bit of time, but Lord of the Afterlife chasing him down. Rippin holes. He's the first victim to DoctorL. As Delnyy takes out Truancii. That's 2 dead. Make that 3 from Relevated.
And down goes to Bellona, who's just up to who? And it's going to be DoctorL. 4-0-1 for the good doctor. It's 6-0. Elevate making easy work of Relevated. Truancii is just, so I mentioned the important factor of this Hades, he has to be the secondary initiator, and that's not what we're seeing, Toli.
Not at all. The front line is just non-existent here out of Relevated. Truancii has been a sitting duck in his ultimate. Even dying without Final Judgment connecting onto him just goes to show how important it is to build this god in a tanky fashion, which is why we see a lot of Hades in the solo lane. Or if you're going to run Hades in the mid lane, you're going to need to have a very tanky front line. And now granted, between Bellona, Thor, and Fafnir, there's a pretty tanky front line, but there's not too much damage reduction and mitigation. We're not looking at a Khepri with a Rising Dawn or a Shin Chen with a Furious Roar or anything of that matter. There's no shells on the board for Relevated or meditation, so the defensive mindset here out of Relevated is just non-existent.
See, I don't even think that Hades necessarily has to build tanky. I think the Bancroft talent is good. You can toss in maybe the Asclepius or maybe a Pythags piece, right, to supplement that healing. But realistically, he just needs help from his teammates. He just cannot be the first one in because he's also the first one out by way of death in that scenario. Nexamiss got to step up, jump in here. He's the top player damage for his team, but he's got to be able to get right in the middle of everything, put down that protection field, and that's where Truancii can fight. Right in the middle. And that's what he wants. That's really what you want to see out of this Hades mid. Right now, not working out for Relevated. Down 8,000 gold and 6 kills, 19.5. They've lost all 3 objectives, 2 of which have been a Gold Fury. And right now, the Fire Giant is pretty hot on Elevate as they're looking for their next push. Looks to be grouping up on the left-hand side. The furthest lane away from the Fire Giant. Good play. They'll be pushing up a tier 1. Hey, shouts to Bellona. Taking down 500 gold for her team. Nexamiss takes down the tier 1 tower on the right side. I like that play because there's no reason to defend a tier 1 on the left.
And Jumpa stripping away his speed buff, making sure that the Cabrakan on DoctorL is not going to be too fast when he pops those trucks trying to charge at you. But either way, Elevate looking pretty strong here as they're trying to defend their SCL spot, getting the Fire Giant at the 18-minute mark after a 4-for-0 with all their ultimates being down on cooldown. Just goes to show you how much they won that team fight convincingly.
Yeah, I like that play on the Jumpa. Just a hot 180 wall, seeing Cabrakan thought he was sneaking up on Jumpa. Not going to be the case. And all in all, Relevated played this correctly, I think.
Nobody gets the jump on Jumpa.
How long? How long have you held that one?
Too long.
Because everybody's getting the jump on Jumpa. Poor guy. 0-1-0. He's had some good plays, actually. Really strong ultimates, and here he's going to look for another one. Relevated trying to defend on the tier 2 tower. Girdle means go, and that's where they're going to go. Right now, Frenzy is popped, and the spin to win stopped by Kenshin. Beads used out by Jumpa, but it's Michael Checo, the first one of the team fight to really make himself known, taking down the opposition.
Ooh.
Nexamiss down for the count. Truancii very low, 10% HP, and Relevated have to walk away from this tier 2 tower. Rippin Hall's going to be ripped on through. Down he goes. Michael Checo, 2-0-6 for the Hunter.
That final judgment just chonking the life of Truancii, dealing 751 damage. This is a level 16 Thoth. Doesn't even have close to a full build. Dynasty plate helmet, pen boots, Book of Thoth, doesn't even have Obsidian Shard finish at this point in the game, and it's only 21.5 minutes. The later this game goes, the scarier it's going to get for Relevated, and this SCL team is looking very strong to defend their spot.
Yeah, Relevated, they just seem it's interesting because I'm seeing a couple of like flashes of brilliance. Like I said, when Elevate took the Fire Giant and they went to that left side, I think Relevated did exactly what they were supposed to do. You're not going to defend a tier 1 tower against a Fire Giant team. They pick up a tier 1 for themselves, they strip away some of the enemy jungle, they regroup on the tier 2 ready to defend. I think that was the correct call. There's no reason to sit in the lane and do nothing. That was perfect. But when it comes time to just bang, Elevate just have more experience, more tools, and I mean right now, more gold. Almost 15k in the lead is Elevate right now, 8-0. Where Relevated just weren't able to get off the ground. Hades is a character that he's not like a Hobwa that he can't fight from behind, but he needs the help.
The problem with going Hades mid here to pair up with Jumpa's Thor is that there's not too much poke potential between those two. They have to commit to being able to deal damage. Truancii needs to either be already point blank range or he has to commit to the dash, which means he's not going to have an escape. And normally whenever you have a Thor in the jungle, you're looking for those long range setup gods that can pair up with it. You're looking at Agni, Kukulkan, Scylla, Poseidon. Like, it doesn't matter who you are with Thor, as long as that mage doesn't have to commit his model towards the heat of the action.
Yeah, really it's just a different style, and Relevated aren't playing to that style, unfortunately. Nexamiss, gonna be Hex a hit right there.
He will be missed.
Oh, you got me again! Oh, it's just like Kirsten with aggro. Oh no! Jump is in the sky. Oh, he's gonna look for it. Nope, everybody's gonna spread.
I love the patience. Despite being up this much gold, they're still going to respect the possible comeback potential. The minions, the firemans from middle and left are not that far deep that allows the full-on 5-on-5. Girdle gets popped, still stuck in the Cabrakan ultimate. Fatatoskr pops the Aegis, having to retreat into safety, but Rippin Holes can't do the same.
And again, I got to tip my hat to Jumpa right there. Perfect wall separating the enemy team from his own team allows Fatatoskr to get out. Now, Rippin Holes, I think he turned around too many times trying to protect his teammates, but that's the support mentality. Jumpa perfectly drops the wall, and that's what I mean by flashes of brilliance. Look, I think Elevate is probably 5 players, probably the 5 better players here on the battlefield right now, as lucky number 11 gets put up thanks to DoctorL. But I like what I'm seeing in the Relevated, and I would be interested to see maybe them later on today, but more importantly, later on, go play another split. I really want to come back to this team.
There's a lot of growing pains necessary before you battle with the big dogs. You want to be able to not only find the right players that you have a lot of synergy with, but at the same time have the same mindset, trying to figure out the right strategies that works out for your team and then executing it together and coherently, and Elevate have been doing that successfully, whereas Relevated, they're still working out some of their kinks. Their team composition could have been a little bit better. I was expecting them to go for those early goal furies with the Fafnir and the Girdle. They tried it that one time, but they just got off of it, and it was a great disengage from Elevate.
Yeah, just a lot of potential on the squad, I think is what we can say here. oBoronic clearing out some of the nonsense on the right side. This Phoenix going to go down as well, Tully.
The damage, though, hitting all 2 of the 3 and the stun, channeling the final judgment, trying to hit onto the Medusa, instead canceling it out. Doesn't matter. Delnyy gets credit with that one. Landing in the backline is Jumpa. Eagles rally up and down. So is Delnyy, but he misses that one. Jumpa takes a spill. 3rd member dead from Relevated. And that's going to be probably it here, Tom.
Yeah, it's definitely game 14 to zip as the opposition cannot find a kill. Elevate look very strong as they take down the Titan in extravagant fashion. 20,000 gold in the lead. Elevate take this one 14-0.
Not being able to find a single kill for Relevated just goes to show you how strong Elevate is, coming off of not the best performance that they wanted out of the LAN, but taking it here in the relegations.
Yeah, I think Elevate played rather well. Again, story seems to be Michael Checo. This hunter just keeps bringing the business, whether he's on a weird god or a staple pick like Cernunnos, just absolutely going for it. And like I said, one of the things that I really want to bring up is, yes, Michael Checo has made a name for himself on playing off-meta, off-brand picks, but at the end of the day, he's going to play what brings him the win, and I like that choice.
He's just never afraid of anything. We've seen such a quiet game between both hunters, but it was actually Michael Checo that had the 2-level lead for quite a large portion of the game, being able to outfarm his opposition without any gold fury, towers, or kills. He was just able to find most of the neutral camp objectives.
I will always cheer for a little bit of flair in the gameplay, and that's what you get out of Michael Checo. I think Elevate really got stronger when they came to LAN. You see that sometimes with teams that have come to LAN for the first time. I think you can speak more accurately on it. There's something about, you know, whether it's the bonding or the team synergy, that this team looks even better than they did in the spring split.
It's also the energy that's you basically feed off between your own teammates, between the crowd in general, and that's something that you can take not only playing in the SPL but in the SCL. You use that energy and you learn from it and you grow as a unit.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely what we're seeing on Michael Checo and his team. That'll be game number 2 of our North American relegations. Coming up next, we do have another Elevate match. It's going to be Elevate versus Most Wanted. I almost said Modern Warfare, but I didn't. Elevate, they've only played one, and they've only got one win, but I think this will be their toughest game against their fellow console league players.
Well, one team made it so far, at least, between their match of the non-SCL teams. The question is, which one is going to proceed further after the next one?
And we'll take a look right after this.